Hey guys, it's Bridget from the DeVay Homestead. Welcome back. Today I have for you this super adorable unicorn hat. Today we'll be learning how to make the hat and how to make the roses and the unicorn ears and the unicorn horn. And then we'll attach those on to make this fun unicorn hat that any child is sure to love. Let's get started. We're going to begin our hat with our double E-wrap cast on. You can use any method you would like. I'm using the double E-wrap method. You make your slip knot and place it on your anchor peg. For the double E-wrap method, we are going to take our working yarn behind the first peg and we are going to wrap it twice and knit off and gently pull. We're going to continue this all the way around. So finish off and meet me back here. Once your cast on is complete, we're ready to start the brim of the hat. For this brim, we are going to be using the E-wrap version of the knit stitch, and we are going to be doing a knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, repeat all the way around. So to do the U-wrap version of our knit stitch, we're going to take our working yarn and we're going to wrap the peg in like a half wrap, and it looks like we have made the letter U. So half wrap your peg for your knit stitch and knit off. Then our next peg, we are going to purl. So we're just going to keep repeating that knit, purl all the way around until we complete the row. For this brim, I'm going to do 6 rows of our knit purl. If you would like to make your brim a little bit longer, you can do more rows, but I'm going to do 6 rows for this hat. Now that we've started this row, you can take this off your anchor peg and move it to the inside of your hat, and we will weave that in when we are finished. So go ahead and finish your knit purl for 6 rows, and then meet me back here. I'm finished the 6 rows for the brim of my hat, and now we're ready to start the body. For the body of the hat, it's going to be a 4-row repeat. The first 2 rows are going to be the same, and we are going to be using 2 knit, 2 purl, repeat all the way around for 2 rows. And for our knit on the body of the hat, we are going to be using the E-wrap version of the knit stitch. On the brim, we use the U-wrap version. So to do our first 2 knit stitches, we're going to take our yarn and we're going to bring it behind the first peg and we're going to wrap it in what looks like a cursive E. Because I'm doing 2 in a row, I can just go ahead and wrap 2, but I'm not going to knit those off. I like to finish off the whole row with just wrapping my knits and then purling for the purls, and then coming back when the row is finished and knit those off. That way, if I leave my project, I can see exactly where I'm at when I come back to it. So these are our knit stitches. For our 2 purl stitches, we're going to take the hook and we're going to bring it under the loop that is on the peg. We're going to go over the working yarn and scoop it up. Take the whole loop off the peg, put the new loop on, and gently pull. We're going to do that 2 times. And now we have our 2 knit and our 2 purl. I'm going to repeat that around for 2 rows and then meet me back here. So go ahead and do those, and then we will see what rows 3 and 4 look like. I am just finished row 2 Now we're ready for rows 3 and 4. Rows 3 and 4, we are going to do a purl 2, knit 2, repeat all the way around. So just opposite of rows 1 and 2 where we did 2 knit, 2 purl, now we're going to do 2 purl, 2 knit, and that's going to give us our checkerboard effect. So we're going to start off our row with 2 purl, then 2 knit, and again I'm going to leave those knit stitches on, and I'm going to come back and knit those off when I finish the row. And you're just going to repeat your purl 2, knit 2 for rows 3 and 4. Once you have completed rows 3 and 4, then start your pattern over again with rows 1 and 2 and repeat rows 1 through 4 until you get the desired length of your hat. Once you get to the desired length of your hat, or just 1/4 inch to the length you want, then do 1 complete row of just your E-wrap knit stitch. That's going to make your drawstring bind off look better. So go ahead and finish off your hat and then meet me back here and we'll do our drawstring bind off. I have finished my hat, and then I did 1 row of my knit stitch to complete the hat, and now I'm going to do my drawstring bind off. To finish off the hat, I'm going to weave in the tail a little bit away from the edge. Then I'm going to make a knot to secure it. And then I'm just going to weave in the rest of the tail. once our hat is done, we can turn it inside out. And since I did the U-wrap version of the knit stitch for the edge, I'm going to work the edge out. And the way I do that is just kind of pull on each one, and just, it'll make those knit stitches lay into place correctly. All right, and there we have it. The hat is complete. For our unicorn horn, I am using this cream colored, and I'm using 2 strands of a number 4 worsted weight. I feel like the number 5 chunky, that's super soft like the Charisma, it's a little too soft, and the worsted weight holds its stiffness a little bit better, even though we're going to be stuffing it. So it's up to you. I just prefer to use the number 4 worsted weight on this 2 strands together. I feel like it works better. Okay, so I'm going to leave a long tail about 12 inches or so. Maybe like 18 inches would be better. I always like to have too much than not enough, because I'm going to use the tail to sew it to the hat. So what I'm going to do is make a slip knot, and I'm going to place that slip knot on my loom. I have marked off 10 pegs. This is peg 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to peg 10. So you can mark your loom or not, just depending on what helps you. Okay, so I'm going to start with peg 10, and I'm going to cast on to the left the other 9 pegs using our double E-wrap cast on method. So I have 10 total pegs casted on if I include the first peg that I put my slip knot. So for the unicorn horn, I'm going to be using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. So for row 1, I'm going to skip the first peg, and I'm going to knit the other 9 pegs. To do the U-wrap version of our knit stitch, we are going to take our yarn, let me get some more yarn, and I'm going to half wrap the peg in what looks like a U, just like we did on the brim of the hat, and knit off. And I'm just going to continue that all the way down, skipping the first peg and knitting the other 9. Once I get here, I can take my beginning yarn and I can pull it to the inside of my loom and just let that hang. Now, that was row 1. Going back in the other direction, same thing. We're going to skip the first peg and we're going to knit the other 9, doing our U-wrap version of our knit stitch. The reason we're using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch on this is it's going to make the stitches really tight, and it's going to look really nice for our horn. Okay, we just completed row 2. So now we're going to do this 3 more rows. So we're going to do row 3, then come back for row 4, and then back here for row 5. So go ahead and complete 3 more complete rows and then meet me back here. And we're just finishing up row 5. Now for row 6, we are going to do a decrease. To do our decrease, we are going to take the loop from peg 9 and move it over to peg 8, and then we're going to take the loop from peg 10 and move it over to 9. Because we're doing the U-wrap version of the knit stitch, it might be a little tight when you pull it over. If so, sometimes I'll grab this with my hand and grab this one and move them over kind of at the same time. So if your pegs are too tight, you can do that. So I move this one to here and this one to here. Now to finish off row 6, we're going to do the same thing we did before, which is skip our first peg and then U-wrap and knit off the rest. Here you'll have 2 loops at the bottom. You want to go ahead and carry that over the top. And the U-wrap version is going to be a lot tighter stitch than your E-wrap. Okay, now for row 7, we're also going to do a decrease. We're going to take the loop from the second to last peg, move it over 1, take the last peg and move it over 1. When you move that last loop over, you want to pull on your working yarn just a little bit to tighten that up. Same thing, we're going to skip the first one for row 7 and we're going to knit off the rest of our pegs, taking 2 loops over 1 loop for this first one. And just push those down. Now for the next 5 rows, rows 8 through 12, we are going to skip the first peg and knit the rest off for 5 more rows. So rows 8 through 12, go back and forth, knitting every peg except the first peg. So go ahead and finish those 5 rows and meet me back here. Okay, so I just finished up row 12. Now for row 13, we are going to do another decrease. So we're going to move over that second to last peg and then move over that last peg. Tighten up your working yarn and knit off all except the first one. Now coming back, row 14 is also going to be a decrease. And the same thing, we're going to take the second to last peg and move it over to our left. Take our last peg, move it over to the left, and tighten up our working yarn, and knit off the rest of the pegs. Now rows 15 and 16 are just regular knit rows without our decrease. Now for the rest of our rows, we are going to keep decreasing each row until we get everything off the loom. So this is row 17. I'm moving my loops over for my decrease, knit off the rest of the loops, and this is going to bring us down to the point of the triangle, which is going to be the top of our horn. Okay, now row 18, we're going to do our decrease again. Now row 19, decrease this way, so we're going to move loops over to the right. Okay. For row 20, same thing on our decrease, we're moving to the left, so we're going to move the middle one over to the left, the one on the end over to the left, and then we'll just have one peg to U-wrap and knit off. Now we're going back to the right, so we're going to take the one on the left, we're going to move it on top of the one on the right. Oop, lost a loop there. Get that back on. Okay, knit off. And now for our bind off, we are also going to make a tail that's about 18 inches and then cut it off, because this is what we're going to use to sew up our horn. Take that working yarn that we just cut off, and we're going to pull it through like we're doing a purl, but pull it all the way out and then bring it off the loom. Go ahead and tighten up that knot, and now you have your triangle. So whenever you do your U-wrap of the knit stitches, you always want to work these stitches out, and the way we're going to do that, and you can see how that changed the look of them, it's working them out and settling in where they need to be. So we're just going to pull side to side and up and down and just work those out. Okay. Now we have the triangle that's going to make our horn. So next, let's get our yarn needle and let's sew together the horn. I'm going to take the strand that's coming from the tip of the horn and thread that onto my yarn needle. So if we look at the edge of the horn, how we have these two loops kind of make like a V, and we have two loops on this side. We're wanting to go through the back loop here and through the back loop here. So the loop that's closest to the edge here and the loop that's closest to the edge over here. So it's going to bring it in and sew it up really nicely. So to get started, we're going to kind of see where our loops match up. So I'm going to go into, let's see here, getting it started is there we go. So I'm going to put it through that loop, and then I'm going to come over here through this loop and just pull. Oh, hold on one second. Let me re-thread that on my yarn needle. Now I'm going to go back to this side and get the back loop and bring my needle through. Then come over to this back loop and put it through there. And I have to keep looking to where my flat end is right here and where the loop is, because when it starts to turn, sometimes you'll see these loops and think that those are the ones you're trying to grab, but you're not. So you're just going to tighten that up, and you're just going to go from loop to loop. And once I pull this, I'm going to kind of go here and pull that back out and make sure that my point, because if you pull too hard, it'll start to curve in like that. So I want to make sure that I'm pulling these together but leaving some tension so I can keep my point straight. I'm just making it nice and clean, going right into the center of those loops. Okay, I'm coming here to the end, to my last loop. And there we have it. There is our unicorn horn. So what we can do now is we can take the one that we just finished with, and I'm going to go ahead and make a knot in the inside. Going to leave the other tail because I'm going to use that one to sew it to the hat. So for this one, I'm just going to go in the inside and make a little knot to secure it. Okay, make my knot. Tighten that up. And then I can just weave that in just a couple rows and then cut that off. Okay, and we're going to use the other loop, the other yarn to secure it to the hat. And there we have our horn. From here you can take some polyfill, which is what you fill a pillow with, and you can put a little in here to help it keep its shape. You don't have to, but it's definitely going to help. So if you don't have any, you know, it's okay, but it's going to help hold that shape, especially when we're sewing it on. Now we're going to make, my favorite part is the roses. The roses are so pretty. I have made one in teal, I've made one in purple. You can use any colors you want on your unicorn. This is some examples. Right now I'm going to show you how to make another one, and I'm going to use this dark pink color. So you can decide however many colors you want. You might want them all in the same color. You might want 2 of one color and 1 of another color. You might want to put more roses. So it just depends on what you want. So I'm going to show you how we're going to make the rose now. I'm going to leave a tail that's pretty good length. Make a slip knot, and I'm going to put it on any peg on my loom. For the rose, we're going to be using a total of 3 pegs. So I put my slip knot on this one, and I'm going to cast on 2 more pegs using the double E-wrap method. Now to get us started, I'm going to take this first peg and I'm going to wrap it twice. I'm going to take the very bottom loop of the 3 that are on there, and I'm going to pull it all the way over the 2 that are on the top, leaving 2 loops on the peg. Okay, now for our first row, so now we're started, we're ready to go, we're set up. So for our first row, moving this way, we are going to E-wrap the other 2 pegs and knit off. Go ahead and take that yarn, move it to the center and get it out of your way. Now to finish off the row, we are going to do something on this peg 3 times. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the yarn and gently wrap the peg. So we don't want to pull hard to make it spin around. We just want to gently wrap the peg like that. So this would kind of be similar to a U-wrap if we were putting a name on it. And we're going to knit off, and we're going to do that 3 times. So 1, this is 2. We're going to do that one more time, 3 times. And what's that? I'm going to show you real quick. What it's going to do is gives us this little chain on the edge of the rose to make it curly. So that's row 1. For row 2 coming back, we are going to Now wrap the same peg we just finished with, which is different than we do when I say skip the first peg. This time we're not going to skip the first peg. We're going to come this way. So we're going to come from the behind like an E-wrap, and then E-wrap the other two pegs. And we'll do this a bunch of times if you didn't get that. We're going to knit off, and always on this one, we're only going to take the bottom loop over the top two. So we just completed rows 1 and rows 2. We're going to do this for a total of 22 rows. So 11 times we're going to go that way, then this way. Okay, for a total of 22 rows. So let's try that again. So from here, we're going to skip. When we're going to the right, we're going to skip this first peg. E-wrap, knit off, U-wrap, 1, 2, 3, and that's finished row 3. For row 4, we're going to come back the other way. We are going to wrap this first one in a U-wrap, 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 knit off, just the bottom over the top. So now we have completed 4 rows. So we're going to just keep doing this until we get 22 rows. So I've just completed 8 rows, and I'm going to just keep going till I get to 22 rows. Finishing up my last row. And you'll notice to the left how it's curving. That's what we want to happen. That's going to curl it around and help us make our rows. Okay. When I get to this point, I am going to take the bottom loop and I'm going to knit over the top. Then I'm going to take the loop on the left and I'm going to move it over to the right. Now I'm going to E-wrap the last peg and knit off. I'm going to knit this one off. Then I'm going to move the loop from the left over to the right, knit off. I'm going to cut a tail that's kind of long to give me some, so I can finish up the rows and attach it to the hat. I'm going to take this off the loom. And now you can see I have the base of my rose. And what we did on the left side is making it curl inward. So the part we were doing on the left side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our yarn needle and we're going to thread this one here onto the yarn needle. It doesn't really matter which way you do it, you just want to be consistent if you want your roses to look the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this point and I'm going to pull it in to about right here, and I'm going to stick that yarn needle through this back and pull it so it will attach the end to right there. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to roll up my rose. Okay, now holding that together, I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to come a little bit further in my rose. Then I'm going to take the back loop of down here, just one of these back loops right here, and pull that through. So now I've attached it right there, and I'm moving further. I'm going to go down into my rose. And see, that's pulling that together. I'm going to come back up and grab another bottom loop of this part. And I'm just going to continue on around, securing that rose to this part right here. And there we have our rose. What I'm going to do with the one that's on the yarn needle is I'm going to go ahead and I pulled that in a little bit more so it's nice and flat. I'm just going to make a knot and finish this end off, and then I'm going to use the other tail to attach it to our hat. I'm just going to weave this in. I'm on the back side of the rose right now, the underside. Cut that off, and now I have my rose, and I have this tail that I'll use to secure this to the hat. And you can bring it in however you want. You can make it tighter like that, or you can make it looser, however you want your roses to look. For the ear of our unicorn, we are going to make a white triangle and then a smaller pink triangle, and then we are going to sew those two together. So the pink will be the inner ear. Okay. To do our white triangle, we are going to take a tail, and again, I always leave a good little tail on these. Let me show you here. Okay, so I left 2 tails. I left 1 tail here, and that's going to let me secure it to the hat, and the other tail I used to secure the pink to the white. So I always leave a good bit of tail. I would rather have too much than not enough. So for the white triangle, we're going to put a slip knot onto our anchor peg, onto any peg of our loom, and we're going to cast on 5 more pegs using our double E-wrap method so that we have 6 total pegs casted on. So we have 1 and then 5 more casted on to give a total of 6 casted on. On our first row, we are going to be doing a knit row when we're going to the right and purl when we come to the left. So to start our knit row, we are going to skip the first peg and we are going to E-wrap the other 5 pegs. And knit off. Once we knit this one off, we can take the beginning yarn and pull it to the inside of our loom. Now going back in the other direction, we're going to purl. We're going to skip the first peg and we're going to purl these 4 pegs, but then when we get to the last peg, we're always going to do something different. And that's going to help us keep nice pretty edges on our work. And I'll show you that here in a second. So I'm going to purl these 4 pegs. Then when I get over to this peg, we're going to E-wrap it and knit off. So always on our purl row, we're going to end with an E-wrap, and that's going to give us nice edges. Okay, now we're going to repeat this for 6 more rows. Knit in this direction and purl in this direction. So go ahead and do 6 more rows and then meet me back here. We're finished rows 1 through 8, and now we're ready for row 9. Row 9 is going to be a decrease row. We're going to take the second to last peg and we're going to move it over to the right. We're going to take the last peg, move it over to the right, take our working yarn and just gently tighten that up. Now we're going to knit off the row exactly like we did before. Skipping the first peg, we're going to E-wrap the other 4 pegs, and when we knit this one off, we're going to take the 2 bottom loops over the top loop. Row 10 is also going to be a decrease row, so going this way, we are going to take the second to last peg and move it over to the left, take the last peg, move it over to the left, and gently pull our working yarn. Going this way is a purl row, so we're going to bring this down for a purl, and we're going to just count these as 2 loops, as 1, and always end our purl row with an E-wrap knit stitch. For rows 11 and 12, we're going to knit and then purl without a decrease. Skipping the first one, we're going to E-wrap the rest. Coming back for row 12, we are going to purl 2 and then E-wrap the last one. Now we're on to row 13. Row 13 is also going to be a decrease, so we're going to take the second to last loop and move it over to the right. Take our last loop, move it over to the right, gently tighten that up, E-wrap and knit off these 2 pegs. Row 14 is also a decrease. We're going to take this one and move it over. We're going to take the last loop and move it over and tighten it up. This is a purl row, but it's our last peg, so we're not going to purl it. We're going to E-wrap and take the bottom 2 loops over the top. Now we're going to take the loop on the left and we are going to move it over to the right and knit off. We're going to cut ourselves a long tail. Bring that underneath the loop that is on the peg. Pull it up like a purl stitch, except pull it all the way through for our bind off. We can take it off, tighten up the top of that triangle, and there we have the ear. Now let's do that again, but we're going to use a light pink, and our rows are going to be a little bit different because we're going to make that triangle smaller so it will fit in this ear. So let's do that. To do our triangle for the inner ear, it's going to be very similar to the other one, but a little bit different in our row count and how many pegs we cast on. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot, placing it on my peg, and I know this is going to be a little awkward because the loom is the exact same color as my yarn, but we just did this one on the white one, so it's the same pattern, just the rows count is a little bit different. We're going to cast on 4 more rows to make a total of 5 cast on pegs for the inner ear, since we're making it a little bit smaller. Okay, I have 5 pegs cast on. Now I am going to do just like we did in the other ear, where we knit to the right, purl to the left, making sure we don't do the first peg, and then when we end the purl row, we end it with an E-wrap. So we're going to do 6 total rows. So this is row 1. Coming back for our purl row would be row 2. End our purl row in an E-wrap knit. That was rows 1 and 2. Row 3 is our knit stitch. Row 4 is our purl. Ending in a knit. Okay, 2 more rows of knit and purl. Now, rows 7 and 8 are going to be decreased rows. So I'm going to take my second to last loop and move it over to the right. Take my last loop, move it over to the right, gently pull my working yarn, E-wrap and knit off 3 pegs, taking 2 loops over 1. So for our decrease this way, take the second to last loop, move it over, take the last loop, move it over, tighten that up, purl the center one, and E-wrap the last one. Now we're going to have 2 rows of no decrease, so we're just going to E-wrap our first row. Coming back for our second row, we're going to purl the middle one, E-wrap our last one. Now we're going to start another decrease. We're going to take the center peg and move it over to the right. Take the peg on the left, move it over to the right. We're going to E-wrap the peg on the right and knit off the bottom 2 over the top. We're going to take the peg on the right, move it over to the left, knit off. I'm going to cut and do my bind off. Take that off the loom, tighten up that knot, and now we have our inner ear. So this is going to go inside the other one. So take a minute and thread your tail end onto a yarn needle and weave it in to your ear to get rid of it, and then do that for this one as well. So go ahead and do that, and then meet me back here and we will connect the pink inner ear to the outer ear. Now I'm going to attach the inner ear to the outer ear. So you just want to kind of line up the bottoms, and we're going to use our white to secure the pink to the white. So I have threaded this onto a yarn needle, the one in here. So you can do this several ways. What you can do is take this one and you can go up this side and then finish off the white, and then you can put this one onto a yarn needle and come down with that one if you would like. So you can do it really any way you want. But what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to catch the back loops of the pink and secure them into the white. We don't want to grab onto these loops of the white because it's going to not look as well. We want to grab these little loops down in here for the white, and it's just going to blend it in a little bit better. So I'm going to grab one of these and come up and grab the pink. And I don't have to grab every pink loop, just enough to get it secure. So see, I'm coming up here as opposed to using one of the side edges of the loop. So different than we would do for, say, the horn. So I'm just securing that to the white. Probably get one more loop here. Okay, and as you can see, this side is connected. I'm going to go ahead and finish off my white. So I'm just going to kind of fold that back for a second, and I'm just going to take this white underneath where the pink is going to lay back down, and I'm just finishing up my yarn with a knot that'll be hidden under that pink, and just weave that in and cut that one off. Now I only have one white tail. I'm going to put that one on my yarn needle. And I'm going to come back down this side doing the same thing I did before. Making sure that I grab in here and not the side loops. Now when I get to the bottom, I'm not going to worry about attaching it here at the bottom because I'm going to attach everything to the hat, so it's not going to make a difference. Okay, I'm going to leave this tail and not cut it because I'm going to use that to secure the ear to the hat. And there we have our 2 ears for our unicorn. So I filled my horn with my polyfill so it's nice and thick, and see how it's going to hold its shape now. I'm ready to attach this to my hat. I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to thread on my tail end of my horn. And I marked right here where I want my horn to be. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my yarn needle just to kind of help secure it to my hat. Once I get this started, I won't need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and I'm going to stitch into the hat and then back up into the horn and just work my way around until I have the horn secure onto the hat. So I'm just grabbing up a loop here, bringing my yarn through, and then back down into the hat. So I'm just going to continue this all the way around until I have my horn nice and secure. I'm ready to sew on my other ear. So I've sewed one on just to show you what that looks like. So I placed it where I wanted it to be, and I kind of pinched in the bottom a little bit, not all the way, but just a little bit just to give it a curve. So you're going to figure out where you want your ear, and then you're just going to start sewing it on. however you want it to be. So if you want it straight or you want the edges to kind of pull in a little bit, I want mine to kind of pull in a little bit. So you're just going to go around sewing the loops from the ear into the hat, just like we did for the horn. So go ahead and sew on your ear and then meet me back here. So after we have attached the horn and the ears, I'm going to attach the roses, and I'm going to do those the same way. I'm going to place them where I want, and I'm just going to sew them onto the hat. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to do it in the loops kind of about right here and leave these loops sticking up so it's nice and fluffy rose. So make sure I'm not like sewing it flat here. So you want to just get these loops around here when you're sewing it to your hat. So go ahead and sew on your roses one at a time and then meet me back here. And there we have it. Our unicorn hat with roses is finished. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Subscribe to my channel and I'll see you guys later. Bye!